What if the fear you carry was never truly yours? There's a kind of fear that doesn't make noise. It doesn't shout, doesn't tremble. It just sits inside you, quiet, cold, familiar. It's there when you're about to speak, but silence wins. When you're about to choose differently, but end up choosing what hurts because it's safer. It's not fear of danger. It's fear of being seen, fear of disappointing, fear of breaking the pattern. And the worst part? You think it's who you are. But what if I told you, this fear didn't start with you? What if it was placed inside you like an invisible inheritance? A fear passed down not through blood, but through silence, through glances, rules that were never spoken, and love that came with conditions. Maybe someone before you had to shrink to survive. Maybe they taught you, without words, how to stay small, how to doubt yourself just enough to stay out of trouble, how to smile through anxiety, how to freeze when it's time to fly. You didn't ask for this fear, but you learned to carry it, because someone you loved didn't know how to let it go. And now, you feel it every time you try to live as you are. Not because you're broken, but because you're healing. You are the first to notice the weight, the first to question the silence, the first to ask, why am I so afraid of being free? Maybe that's not weakness. Maybe that's what awakening feels like in the beginning. Not like light, but like shaking in the dark. Because the moment you stop pretending, the fear screams louder. Not because it's true, but because it's dying. And maybe, just maybe, the fear that paralyzes you is the proof that you're not like them. You're not here to repeat the story. You're here to end it. So I'll ask again. What if the fear that paralyzes you is a legacy you were born to end? No one teaches you this in words, but the lessons are everywhere. Be nice. Don't make trouble. Don't be too loud. Don't take up too much space. And somewhere along the way, those messages don't sound like advice anymore. They become rules, and eventually, they become identity. You begin to believe that staying quiet is kindness, that pleasing everyone is strength, that shrinking is safety. But it's not. It's fear, disguised as virtue. You learned this in invisible ways, not in school, not in books, but in the tension on someone's face when you expressed too much. In the way love felt closer when you were agreeable, in the silence that followed your truth. And slowly, you started building the cage. Not a physical one, but the kind made of patterns and performances. The kind you carry with you into every room, every relationship, every decision. You shape yourself into what they need. You become fluent in reading the room. Even when no one speaks, you laugh on cue. You nod when you want to scream. And they call you easygoing, sweet, balanced. But inside something is cracking. You look in the mirror, and you don't quite recognize what you see, because you've become a masterpiece of survival, painted in the colors of everyone else's comfort. But who are you when no one is watching? This is not just personality, it's inheritance. Fear doesn't always come as panic or dread. Sometimes it arrives as loyalty. Loyalty to a mother who swallowed her voice to keep peace. Loyalty to a father who only showed love when you succeeded. Loyalty to ancestors who learned that safety meant silence. So you carry it, not because you're weak, but because you care. But here's the truth. You can love them and still not live like them. You can honor their pain without repeating it. Because if fear was passed down, then healing can be too. What if you're not broken? What if you're the one brave enough to feel what no one else could? That inner freeze you feel, that constant second guessing. It's not who you are. It's the echo of someone else's survival. But here's the twist. The cage was built for a world that no longer exists. You're still obeying rules written by ghosts. It's time to ask the question most people never dare to. Whose fear am I living out? Let that question haunt you, not to torment you, but to awaken you. Because once you see it, once you name it, you can begin to dissolve it. You were not born afraid. You were taught. And anything learned can be unlearned. So take a breath. Feel the tension in your chest. That's not weakness. It's the weight of a role that was never yours. And here, now in the quiet of this realization, You are allowed to lay it down, not suddenly, not perfectly, but slowly, like a snake shedding a skin that's become too tight. This isn't about rebelling. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be, before fear became your compass, before silence became your safety. What if the version of you that's hiding isn't weak or lost? What if it's sacred, waiting, watching, wanting to be free? The invisible cage of inherited fear only survives when we believe it's our home. But you're starting to see through it, aren't you? You feel it, the pull toward something real, a voice that doesn't ask for permission, a presence that doesn't apologize. That voice is yours, and it was never meant to live in a cage. Drop a comment like you're opening a door no one ever let you walk through. What fear have you been carrying that you know was never truly yours? Write it as if, this time, someone is actually listening. Some wounds don't scream, they whisper, and sometimes they don't even speak. They shape you. There's a kind of pain that doesn't look like pain. It looks like hesitation, like not answering messages, like overthinking before saying yes, like always needing a plan, a backup, a mask. And people say, you're so careful, so grounded, but inside, you're frozen. Not because you don't feel, but because you feel too much. This fear that keeps showing up in your life, it's not a wall, it's a wound. One that was never allowed to heal. One that got buried under expectations, comparisons, and quiet disappointments. Maybe it started early, when you were laughed at for being too emotional, when your joy was too loud, your pain too inconvenient. When someone told you, directly or indirectly, that being yourself was dangerous. And so you learned to retreat, to pause before you feel, to double-check every word before it escapes your mouth, to hide, even from the people who love you. But that version of you, the one who freezes, avoids, withdraws, that's not your flaw. That's your protection. That's the child in you, still trying to be safe. In Buddhist experience, we say, fear is not the enemy. Fear is a messenger. It arrives when the self you've outgrown is cracking. It appears when your mind holds on, but your spirit is ready to release. And here's the paradox. Fear is not just about what's ahead. It's grief for what's behind. You're not afraid of the unknown. You're mourning who you had to become just to survive. Because the role you've played, the polite one, the strong one, the one who never asks too much, that role became your armor. But now, it's your prison. And deep down, a part of you knows you can't keep playing it forever. The fear you feel is not weakness. It's a sign that something in you is ready to stop pretending. But pretending has been your way of staying safe. So when you try to step out, your body remembers. It remembers the time you were honest, and it backfired. The time you opened up and weren't believed. The time you showed your real self, and they walked away. So now, even when nothing is wrong, your body still prepares for impact. That's not you being broken, that's you being intelligent. Because trauma doesn't always leave bruises. Sometimes it leaves a blueprint, a set of instructions. Hide here. Don't say that. Stay small, stay safe. But what once kept you alive, now keeps you from living. So what now? You pause, you breathe, you feel the fear. Not as an enemy, but as an old guardian. You thank it, then you ask it to step aside. Because you don't need it to protect you from a past that's no longer happening. You are not in danger anymore. You are just unfamiliar with freedom. That trembling in your chest isn't a warning. It's a beginning. It's your nervous system learning what peace feels like without pretending. It's your soul stretching into a space it was always meant to inhabit. So if you feel stuck, frozen, caught between who you were and who you're becoming, know this: you are not lost. You are shedding. This is the sound of old fears dissolving, not all at once. Not loudly, but slowly, like ice melting under the light. You're not meant to fight the fear. You're meant to understand it, to trace it back to its root, and realize that the pain didn't start with you, but the healing can. You are not the trauma, you are the turning point. So don't rush this, don't force it. Let the silence speak, let the stillness reveal. Because underneath all the layers, beneath the fear and the freeze and the hiding, There is something so alive in you, and it's ready, not to be perfect, not to be fearless, but to be real. What if freedom didn't feel like power, but like release? We grow up believing that to be free is to be fearless, to feel nothing, to walk through fire untouched. But that's not freedom, that's a performance. Real freedom, the kind your soul longs for, doesn't look like control. It looks like surrender. It begins the moment you stop asking fear to leave and start asking yourself what it's trying to protect. Because the fear you've carried for so long, the one that froze your voice, bent your spine, shrank your dreams, was never just fear. It was loyalty to someone's pain, to an old identity, to a past version of you that believed survival meant silence. But now you're here, and something inside you is tired. Tired of managing, performing, hiding. This isn't a breakdown, it's a threshold. And you are standing in the space between two lives. The life where you stay small to feel safe, and the life where you let go and finally feel free. Letting go isn't passive. It's not giving up. It's choosing not to carry what was never yours to begin with. It's unhooking yourself from the belief that fear is the final truth. It's releasing the idea that your worth must be proven, earned, performed. And yes, that kind of release is terrifying. Because for a long time, your fear has been your compass. Without it, where do you go? You go where you were always meant to, into your own body, into your own voice, into a life that doesn't apologize for existing. Buddhist wisdom speaks often of impermanence, that all things arise, change, dissolve. Fear, too, follows this law. It's not a permanent structure. It's a wave, a cloud, a visitor. You don't need to fight it. You just need to stop building homes inside it. You are allowed to feel afraid and still move. You are allowed to tremble and still speak. You are allowed to be messy and still be worthy. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. And clinging is subtle. It shows up in overthinking, in rehearsing conversations, in holding back the truth just enough to stay likable. But what if being fully yourself is the medicine? Not the perfect version of you, not the healed, glowing, untouchable version, but the one who's raw, who cries sometimes without knowing why, who wants love and space and quiet all at once. That version is not too much. It's not unstable, it's true. And that truth, however unpolished, is your path to peace. Letting go might feel like losing control, but that's because control was never real. It was just your way of feeling safe. Now, safety comes from presence, from honesty, from learning to sit with the discomfort without becoming it. You are not your fear. You are the sky. The fear is just weather. It passes. It always does. And the more you stop trying to control how you're seen, the more you start being, not as a role, but as a presence. There's a paradox in this. The more you let go of who you think you should be, the more you become who you truly are. So take off the armor, bit by bit, not in grand gestures, but in small choices. Say what you mean. Rest when you're tired. Walk away from what asks you to betray yourself. And if you feel the fear rise, greet it. Smile at it. Tell it. I know you're trying to protect me, but I don't need you the same way anymore. Letting go is not cold. It's warm. It's the warmth of walking without weight. It's the softness of not needing to be right, not needing to be liked, just being here. So maybe you're not becoming someone new. Maybe you're simply returning to a self that never needed to perform, to a silence that doesn't mean absence, to a life that doesn't demand armor. You don't have to earn this freedom. You just have to stop postponing it. And now, we arrive at the quiet part. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of truth. Because after the fear dissolves, after the performance cracks, after the armor falls, what remains is you. Not the version shaped by survival, not the identity built from fear. Just you, raw, breathing, and finally here. No more roles. No more trying to be understood by those who never listened. No more shrinking to fit in cages that were never built for someone with wings. This is the moment most people run from, not because it's painful, but because it's honest. And honesty, after a lifetime of masks, feels like exposure, like standing naked in front of yourself for the first time. No applause, no script, just presence. But this is where healing begins, not in the noise of transformation, but in the stillness of acceptance. And I want you to hear this. There is nothing wrong with you. You're not behind. You're not late. You're not broken. You were just carrying things that were never yours. Stories, expectations, legacies of silence. And now, slowly, breath by breath, you're putting them down. This is what it means to return to yourself. To sit in a room without needing to impress it. To speak without editing every word. To breathe without performing calmness. It's messy. It's uncomfortable. It's quiet. But it's real. And in Buddhist practice, we don't rush this process. We sit with it. We bow to it. Because presence is not something you reach. It's something you remember. Right now, you're remembering what it feels like to exist without explanation. To be seen, even if only by yourself. And that is sacred. Because when you stop fighting reality, when you stop trying to fix, improve, escape, you start living. You start noticing the small things. The way your chest rises when you tell the truth. The way your body softens when you're not trying to be perfect. The way peace feels more like permission than achievement. You realize that the life you were waiting for doesn't arrive with a bang. It whispers. It says, you've always been enough. You were never meant to earn your place here. So what now? Now you rest. Not because everything is solved, but because not everything has to be. You walk slower. You speak gentler. You forgive deeper, not because they deserve it, but because you do. You understand that fear will return. It always does. But now, you meet it differently. Not as a threat, but as a teacher. Not with resistance, but with compassion. Because every time fear knocks, you'll remember. This is not my enemy. This is a chance to remember who I no longer need to be. And if you ever forget again, that's okay. Forgetting is part of remembering. Hiding is part of becoming visible. You are allowed to return to yourself 1,000 times, each time, more softly than before. So here in this final breath, I leave you not with answers, but with space. Space to be, to feel, to exist without justification. Because healing is not a destination. It's the choice, moment by moment, to stop abandoning yourself. And so I'll leave you with this. What if the fear you're trying to fix isn't a flaw, but a doorway? And what if everything you need is waiting for you on the other side of not resisting anymore? Close your eyes. Breathe. There is nothing left to prove. There is only this. You. Alive, present, free.